He gave me opportunity. He said, I'll come and I'll teach you the business. You got to go back to business school. You'll learn the business. So sort of like a light came on. Oh, this is what I should be doing. The military burns that into your head day one until your last day. If you do little things every day, it works. It builds up and it makes big changes.
Some people wait for opportunity. Others fight for it. Welcome to Tactical Wealth, the show where discipline, service, and real-world experience become pathways to financial power. I'm your host, Kaj Larson. On each episode, we bring you the stories and the wisdom of those who have gone from boots on the ground to successful careers, from military to wealth, and how they've done it so you can apply those insights to your own mission and your own life. This is Tactical Wealth, from military to money. Welcome back to another episode of Tactical Wealth. Today's guest is a Marine Corps F-18 Hornet pilot turned finance mogul. He has over 100 carrier landings. He did multiple back-to-back combat deployments before ultimately transitioning into finance, where he now runs an aerospace and defense ETF. We will get into all of that. But Tony, welcome to the show. Good to have you.
Great to be here.
And
Thanks
we haven't seen each other in quite a while.
It
turns out that we were classmates in college at the Naval Academy.
That's so crazy. Oh my God.
That is wild. So how did you end up, you're 1 year ahead of me, but how did you end up at boat school?
Yeah, I came from a very small rural farm town in upstate New York. And my dad's a Vietnam veteran and got out and became a school teacher in my hometown. Mom was a homemaker. I have an older brother who also went to the Naval Academy. And my mom pretty much told my brother and me, said, you're either going to the Naval Academy or, you're on your own. And so that was probably the beginning of it. I sort of always had that, the cursory interest of the military, serving, obviously watched movies like everybody else, Top Gun in the 80s. And
me too, by the way.
I know.
That's where I went to. We all watched Top Gun, and we all went to Naval Academy to be a naval aviator.
I'm a naval aviator, right?
Yeah. And by the way, do you know that this is like way fast forward, but like before the show, we were talking about our classmates and stuff. Tripiano and I were in Top Gun 2 because they filmed it in San Diego and they used real Navy pilots.
Right. Oh, that makes sense because he was in North Island. I'm sure North Island.
He was at North Island.
Right. Was it the I-bar scene where they're?
That's exactly what
awesome.
It was. I think they called it the hard deck.
The hard deck. That's the name of the bar. Yeah.
Top Gun. And they donated that bar to the naval base. After the movie was
after
over.
the set.
But the city of Coronado, because of like the snowy plover, wouldn't let them keep it on the beach. So it sits somewhere on North Island Naval Base now.
What a sad state. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yeah. I spent a lot of time in the I-bar in North Island. But yeah, so I had that I had sort of always that interest and time came. And I was fortunate enough to get an appointment and headed down there. My brother was already a third class when I was a plebe, and I actually played 150s with my brother, lightweight football with him. So it was good. It was a great experience to be down there. And
said no one ever. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
Naval Academy's rough. We say, it's a good place to be from.
It's a good place to be from, rough place to be. And obviously we go back every year now. I take my family. We all pack in, drive down to Annapolis, go watch a football game, and go to Buddy's Crabs and Ribs and do the whole kit and caboodle. But it's great. Yeah.
Great. So you were successful enough at school to service select Marine Corps aviation, and you ultimately became an F-18 pilot, like a true hotshot, tip of the spear.
Yeah, I would say I was a very average fleet pilot, and I love what I did. As a very competitive line of work, and the guys, the people you fly with, they're the best in the world by far, hands down. And so I was fortunate enough to be part of that community, and did that for about 10 years, and then eventually came back to San Diego. I was always a West Coast guy. I was a Miramar guy, and deployed out of San Diego on the Carl Vinson, and then did another deployment to Iraq, and then came back and then did a third deployment to Japan. Did a sort of they call it a UDP or a Westpac in Iwakuni, Japan. So I did my 3 deployments, and then I sort of knew I was going to be getting out, and I was fortunate enough to come back as an instructor. And I flew the F-18 down at Miramar in 101 to teach the new guys how to fly the plane. So I did that for about, I did it for 10 years, and then I knew it was time. I just gotten married. My wife, she sort of had a full career. She's a correspondent on Dateline, and she at the time was at ABC when she was on Good Morning America. And
so wait, you're telling me that you're like a Marine Corps F-18 fighter pilot who married a TV star? Yeah. You really are living the Top Gun lifestyle.
Man,
what did you tell her? Because there I was inverted. Was that your pickup line?
Yeah, essentially that's what it was. Actually, interestingly enough, I met her through another correspondent, a lady named Martha Raditz, who I'm sure you're familiar with.
ABC, right?
ABC, war correspondent for ABC. And she, when I was in Iraq, I met her over there, and she was flying all over Iraq. And this is in, the 2005 time frame when, Red Irish was in full effect. So everyone was flying around, and I would help her get flights all over the place. And she said, "You got to come. When you get back, you need to meet my office mate, Andrea." And so that's how it started.
It was a Martha Raditz hookup?
It was a Martha Raditz hookup, yep. So,
wow, that's amazing. Yep. Well, look, you're actually, believe it or not, the first fighter pilot that I've had on the show. So you got to just give me a little color about what is it like? Like, tell me about it. Like, what's it like to fly like a night combat mission in an F-18? I mean, at the time, the F-18 was the premier aircraft in the fleet.
It was the best. It was as far as technology capabilities. It was the.
It's the Super Hornet.
The Marine Corps never bought the Super Hornet. We bought the original Hornet. We actually, my squadron had the latest series, the latest.
Which was the Delta or something?
It was a C, but it was a late lot C, so it had all the new toys on it. So it was a really. It was nice. It was a Ferrari, it was really a lot of sensors, a lot of toys, and so we took that to the boat, and
so you launch off the carrier at night, and land it, which is like considered one of the hardest things in the world to do. That's the hardest job in the world, right?
I mean, I think people in general in tactical aviation, I think people agree that a night carrier landing is probably the most. It probably demands the most focus of anything in aviation is my guess.
And is it because there's no margin for error?
There's little margin for error. There's very little, but I think it's more. It's just at night when you're in, they call it blue water ops. Hundreds of miles away from any piece of land. Knowing that, of course, and of course, there's tankers. There's tankers above. They call them yo-yo tankers, and they just sort of sit up above the carrier and wait for someone that has gas problems and has fuel problems and bolters and has to go. But otherwise, there is only so much gas, right, at some point. And I think having that understanding, knowing that it's pretty much it's a single seat aircraft and you got to bring it aboard, and there's really no other way around it. I think that on top of it's just, I mean, as you've been in the fleet, and you go out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean at night and it's pitch black. There's just nothing out there. You get a cloud cover, you get low moon, and you're out there and you're by yourself and it's dark, and you sort of break out through the first set of clouds, when you're coming down the chute, and you just see this little postage stamp. The term they keep using is that this little yellow because of the sodium lights. This little yellow postage stamp in the middle of the ocean, and you're very far away from it, and you're like, I'm going to land on that, and you're going there, and
how big is the aircraft? Like 18,000 pounds or something?
The F-18s, it's about, when you land, it's about 33. You want to land around 33,000 pounds is the trap weight.
So you're right. So you're landing 33,000 pound aircraft on a postage stamp in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, middle of the ocean. And as you said, there's very little margin for error. Like, essentially, what it is you have to keep your head through about a 3-foot square box throughout the glide profile. The glide path is about a 3.5 degree glide path, and you have to hit somewhere between the 2 and the 3 wires, preferable. Of course, there's 4. Now there's 3 in the newer carriers. But you got to catch from those wires, and if you don't, there's consequences. And what it does, it messes up the rest of the. It's sort of like a big orchestra. It's this big evolution going on, and it's all very, very detailed, planned out. And you're expected to land at your time. When you're in the chute and you're marshaling, and there's a go time. And if you mess it up, it messes everything up. And then they got to start worrying about gas. And then the CAG is up there, and he's worrying about gas and other planes. And it's a pretty serious business when you're doing that.
Yeah, and that's just getting to and from.
Yeah, it's just the admin part of it, which is the crazy thing.
Right, and then there's the actual mission itself.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Yep.
And most of your missions, they were sensor. They were like. Their ordnance, like
you would do everything. The Hornet's a multi-role place, so you would do everything. You do air to ground, air to air. You'd fly every profile that there is. The Hornet does it can lay mines. It does anti-ship warfare. I mean, you name it, it pretty much has a weapon system that can comply with that. So yeah, that's the other thing is you're sort of the F-18 is sort of a jack of all trades, master of none. We go fly. We'd go do dissimilar training with like the F-15s, which, they're unbelievable. It's an unbelievable community. And as far as air to air, they're, hands down, there's really no one else. F-15, F-22 community. They're amazing at what they do. But they don't really need to they never go below 15,000 feet, They don't need to. So, they get very good at and specialize at their mission. And we do that and everything else. And then on top of that, on the boat, you're coming back every day, no matter what, you're coming back and you're landing on the boat. And so it was a great experience. I got to be a LSO as well, where the landing signal officer, the people that sit there on the deck and help the jets get aboard when you get some action on the boat.
And that's in the little bubble thing, or that's on the deck?
They're on the deck, and they sort of have a platform over to the on the port side of the carrier. And they sit there and they essentially are control. They have a sort of a trigger mechanism where they can control allowing you to land or waving you off. So you're sort of the final say before the plane lands.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Look, I've had the privilege, as you know, to be around it and to see it. It's the craziest fucking thing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
When you're standing on the deck of an aircraft carrier and this 30,000-pound thing is crashing next to you, and there's like 50 people running around in different colored shirts right next, like you're 5 feet away from this thing that is essentially like smashing. Yeah. It's a controlled crash.
It's a controlled crash, right? Yeah, you're landing at 800 feet per minute, which when you're going to take off and land at LaGuardia and heading back to Miami, you'll land at they call it the moment they call is at your N sub Z, your vertical acceleration. You're going to land at 0 N sub. You should land at 0 N sub Z. You should eke it on, and that's how almost every plane in the world lands, except for carrier aviation, where it just doesn't. You can't have that happen just because the glide slope is too low and it just doesn't work with the hook, how the hook sets. And you essentially need to plant the jet down at a certain point, and it's the only way to do it. And that's why you see these planes, the Navy planes, they have really beefy landing gear, and it's a huge weight issue. So you have to add a ton of weight to the jet. You need more fuel for it, and you beef up everything. All the spars, everything on the jet is heavy.
Yeah, because you're crashing. You're crashing in.
Yeah, so it's a wild. You go out and you watch night recoveries on the crow's nest, and it's absolutely wild. And when you're doing it as an LSO, and the deck has all this non-skid on it, right? And it's to help people, it's help the jets, which all gets ripped off, by the way, the first month of the cruise, and you have to pull in and to somewhere like Guam and get, the deck resurfaced. And so you have all this material just blasting in you're as an LSO, you're there, you're watching the plane land, and you just get blasted with all the jet exhaust, non-skid, grease they grease the heck out of the wires, right? To keep the friction down. And you come back and you're just coated with it's a complete, it it is mayhem up there, but it's controlled. It's very well thought out, but it is a wild experience.
Yeah. I think also one of the purposes of this show is to translate our military experiences into success in the private sector. And I can't really think, even including like my own experience in the SEAL teams, there are very few environments that are subject to that much pressure.
Yeah. A good one I remember I was a Nugget, my first cruise, my first time out on the carrier.
Chicken nugget?
What you call the new guys nuggets, right? You call them nuggets, or
we call them FNGs.
FNGs, yeah. So I think that's the Navy's colloquial, probably maybe a little more, it's a better term for it. But you're a new guy. You're the first time you're really a fleet guy on the carrier, not carrier qualifications. You're there and you're running cyclic ops. And I was doing some kind of like radar intercept training mission with my XO, a guy named Brutus Charette, who's an absolute legend, just like man among men. And we go out and, I'm behind the jet. I'm a new guy. I'm just hanging on the vertical stabs, just hoping to survive this. And it was an easy mission, but I'm behind it and I'm burning gas. And so how you work in cyclic ops is a thing called a fuel ladder. And you pretty much always put a fuel ladder up. And you would write, you have a column and it's your time and the amount of fuel you need at that time to get back to when you land, have the state that you need to land at. And if you get below that state, that's when then the CAG finds out. It's like pushing the general's door button. You're like, it's a problem. So we go out and we're in goggles and you still have some uncomfortableness because you're relatively new. You just haven't done it. And I'm just jacking the throttles around, which is a huge inefficiency in a plane, obviously. And I get below my ladder. And so, you got to own up to it. You got to fess up. And I say, hey, XO, I'm below my ladder. We're having a problem. It's not good. And he's like, you're done. Go back and get on. It's called get on ladder, which means you put your throttles at 250 knots, which is your max endurance. Most way you can maintain time in airborne. And he sends me away, and sends me back to Marshall, which is where everyone sort of waits to come down the chute. And I'm like, I got to come back now. And it was the first time I really, because I got sent away from the mission. He's like, you got to go back, and it is standard of what happens if you do get behind ladder. And and it's the first time I realized, I'm like, I got to get this thing aboard because it's me in this plane and there's nobody else.
No one's coming
to save me. Like I got nothing else, and that was my first realization that you got to sort of pull up your britches here and do it yourself. Not that I didn't know that before, but you always sort of said, I could do this.
Moments.
Yeah, I could do this.
It all comes down.
Yeah, I did my CQ. I did very uneventful. I did very well. All my flight school stuff. I did. Did a great job. All that. And it was the first realization that this is it. It's not a joke anymore. and I'm sure that you can fully relate, if not 10 times, 1,000 times more.
Yeah, first time I did a halo jump, jumped out of the airplane, like nobody's coming to save you.
Right.
Nobody. You got 30 seconds to save your own life.
It's sort of wild when you think about that. You're just taking that kind of calculated risk, but it's the consequences are serious. So I think that's the point, I guess.
Tony, what was your call sign?
Oh gosh, I knew you were going to ask that. My wife loves this, of course. It was teabag.
Teabag.
Yeah,
nice.
Telling your wife that call, her having to explain that call sign to her friends, that's always a treat, So
nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so teabag, you do a decade in the cockpit.
Yes.
What do you do when you get out?
And then so I was in my twilight tour, I like to call it. I sort of knew. I put my papers in, and I said, and remember, the timing matters. There's a lot about timing. This was so I got my wings in 2001, right like literally a week before 9/11, and your contract is an 8-year contract, so you can do the math. 2009. It's 2009, and we're literally at the nadir of the financial crisis. It was like March. I put my papers in, and it shows you my just ignorance or my lack of understanding. I was focused. I was a fleet guy. I was flying planes, and that was my focus. And that's what I knew. And just sort of my unawareness of what was going on in the world. I mean, of course, I knew that the funding was going on, and it was all over the news. But I'm like, I'm just going to go and try to transition to. And again, I'd always had that that subtle interest. My parents, we were very very humble, simple, but they'd always invested, right? So they'd always they got me a small account. My uncle got me a small account, and I bought stocks and just and I grew up listening to the folksiness of Warren Buffett and understanding all that. And I said, I'm going to go and I'm going to go try to join Wall Street. And I don't know what I was thinking. I'm like, but I always want to do finance and investing. It was always interesting to me, but I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue. I was an engineer at the academy. I didn't take one economics class. I mean,
No. I say this all the time. Part of the reason we're doing this whole thing, sitting here having tea and talking with Teabag.
It's gonna get better.
That's the title of this episode.
Oh my gosh! Help me.
Part of the reason we're doing it is like you. I was like front sight focused on war fighting, right? And I will admit, to my own detriment, I didn't pay attention to finance in personal finances in the same way I should have, because the job is so fucking intense, and it's all that matters to you overseas. And one thing I hope we can do here is impart like some degree. You can reserve even if you're like the best operator ever. You can reserve 1% of your brain to thinking about this.
Well said. And you know what? It should be like, it should be professionally and personally for you. Like you owe it to yourself. And I look back and I'm like, I still look back. I still am shocked that I didn't do that. It still shocks me. I'm like, I should have known. Like, I'm a smart guy. Like I should have known that I should have like at least taken a basic financial, management. And listen, and I give credit to. I remember in being in flight school, we all went in the auditorium one day before we started like ground school API, and they gave us a very 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 generalized broad brush. And I'm sure you remember it in early training, but you just don't really. You're like, I'm about to go learn how to fly a plane. It just doesn't.
I'm about to jump out of this airplane. It doesn't stick.
It doesn't stick. Like, you're not thinking about that. And I sort of put it back in my a little brain bucket and just moved on. But and so I was fortunate enough. I was fortunate enough through a family friend to meet Mario, and who's the CEO and founder of Gamco Investors, and a wildly famous value investor. Sort of think of Warren Buffett, Graham Dodd, value investing, Columbia Business School. He's sort of on that. That in that stratosphere, and he gave me opportunity. He said, I'll come and I'll teach you the business. You got to go back to business school, and you'll learn the business. And so I was fortunate enough to get accepted at Columbia's business school and learn value investing. And it's sort of like a light came on when I got there. I'm like, oh, this is what I should be doing. This is now I get it. And then from there, it all sort of natural. I mean, it was a huge amount of work and heavy lift, because you're not a spring chicken. You know what I mean? And you're a decade behind your peers. The people you're working with, you're a straight up decade behind them. And it's like your first day in flight school, and you're talking to a really salty instructor, and you don't know what you're talking about. They know you don't know what you're talking about. And luckily, I had some really good mentors. A guy named Chris Morangi, and he sat me down. A very very good value investor, and just a really smart guy. And he walked me through and taught me about value investing and fundamental analysis.
Taught me fundamental analysis.
Yeah.
Yes. No, it's absolutely true. I mean, when I talk about transition, one of the headwinds that I talk about is that we are a decade. For those of us who went and served overseas, we're a decade behind our socioeconomic peers, right? And they've had all of this time to not just acquire knowledge, but to acquire networks.
100%.
And so the guy who mentored you, he's got 7 other friends on Wall Street that he can call and workshop ideas or pressure test or build things together and stuff like that. And so not only do you not have the knowledge, you don't have the social networks that also help amplify your trajectory. But at the same time, we do have some tailwinds. And 100%. One of those tailwinds is that, we have an esoteric beyond the leadership skills and the stuff that matter, some esoteric knowledge about systems, right, that our civilian counterparts won't have, right?
Sure.
Now you manage a aerospace defense ETF.
Yes.
I think you know a little about aerospace and defense.
Yeah. It's really, so again, say my peer group, right? They had been through, investment banking associate programs and are very, analyst associate programs. And
Great
are
at
very,
technical
very,
analysis.
very skilled, like much better than I could be, and just highly skilled. But then you go and start talking sort of what's the operational plan here? What are the tactics? Why would you want this system over this system? And I'm like, I use this stuff, and I remember going. Our firm is big on we want to fundamental bottoms up investing, understand what the business does. We go visit the company. We can't really cover a company until we go visit the headquarters and the operational of the plants. And I went and visited a small company up in Connecticut company called Command, which got taken out and was a big success for our firm. But was acquired a couple years ago. And we're walking around the headquarters in the plant, and I'm seeing these they're called self lubricating bearings, which is essentially, it's really a bushing that uses like a Teflon coating, and it allows the a gear door to get opened by force and not have to be replaced all the time because it's being rubbed on. And they're the leaders in it. They make every self-lube bearing there is out there, essentially, in aviation. And they've got a long track record, very successful. They're on almost every plane. And I look at it, I'm like, that's an F-18 nose gear self-lube bearing that I used to fly. And I knew that part, like I just knew it. And I just take that as an example. Just, I flew that plane and I flew that part every day for 10 years, and we see things like that, and that can translate up to bigger sort of like who would want to own that, what company would want to buy that, and you can understand the rationale why these companies.
Yeah, and you can see the causal chain, the supply chain working.
Exactly, right. So I just think that advantage, it helps level the playing field a little bit, and I've used it in everything I do every day. When I look at a company, I say, well, okay, here are the economics, and here's the model, and here's the the earnings or whatever, and that, which is all very important. But I think longer term, if you can understand what this company does and why it's important, what's the criticality of it, what's the barrier to entry, that's the longer term key. And we're long term investors. I'm not gonna beat these these short term momentum guys. It's just not we're not gonna win there. But in the long term and who's gonna buy who, I think we definitely have an advantage.
Yeah, and I think you also sort of lean into this core value that is you. There's you said you're in the Warren Buffett school. There's the famous Warren Buffett never bet against America. Right. And I would guess, I haven't looked at your ETF, but I would guess that principle is firmly baked into the ETF. I mean,
and listen, there's all these different industries, and I guess I can only really talk. I can talk in depth of mine, and fortunately for the industry that I'm in, the U.S. is by far the dominant operator. The world's defense spending budget is about globally is about $2.5 trillion. And of that, the NATO is about $1.5 trillion. And of that, the U.S. is $1 trillion. So we're the big, we're not only we're a gorilla, we're like a gorilla amongst mice. We're just so much bigger than everybody else. So the U.S. is a dominant player, and the companies that I invest in generally are. But of course I look at the global, the global market, which is investable, and there's other great European and Asian firms as well. But I mostly operate in the U.S.
Yeah. And if there's one lesson that you kind of drew from your military experience that you think has been mission critical in your success in the private sector, what would you say it is?
I'd say just in aviation, So like if you were to like go right now and I think you can really relate to this. If you were to go right now and try to jump into an F-18 or an F-35 or F-20, just as a civilian, or even like your first day of flying, you wouldn't be able to, it would just be overwhelming. You just couldn't do it. And what the thing that I think teaches you in flight school, and I think all military formalized training is just incremental. Everything, they always say, how do you eat a whale? And, one bite at a time, right? And you just break everything down into
with a Norwegian, right?
Yeah, with a Norwegian.
They still whale and they still eat whale. I remember
right?
being in Norway and seeing like whale in the markets. I was like, what the?
Yeah, I know. Well, one bite.
Yeah, one bite at a time.
One bite at a time, and you just break it down into simple steps. And I've learned, because it's overwhelming when you get like a project or something. You're like, how am I going to do this? And flying, what it taught me is that I went from sitting in an API class and just learning how a molecule of fuel goes through it. It goes from this, the intake to whatever, and you go from that and then to landing on carriers at night, and it's all incremental, small steps, baby steps, and I think that holds true for anything you do in life, and that's I've always tried to keep things simple and break things down to their simplest format.
Yeah, and having the courage to do so, right?
Yeah.
Some people look at the end state and they're like, it's impossible,
yeah.
Right? Yeah, and this is why people quit buds,
right.
But we say one day at a time, sometimes one step at a time.
One step at a time. Yeah, I couldn't imagine a better example. How you get through that, and I guess that's what it is. You just say, I'm just gonna make it to this next.
Either that or you're real dumb, which that works too.
Yeah. Just keep going.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Tony, we like to end with this section that we call rapid fire. Yes. I'm trying to think what the aviation equivalent is. Like in combat, we say like shoot and steal, like you get instant feedback. Like, what do you get instant feedback from in aviation?
Oh man,
I need a new metaphor.
Yeah, what would it be? Instant feedback. I guess. Well, you have a little. I guess in the HUD, at least
the heads-up display.
The heads-up display. You have this thing, a pipper, which is essentially takes radar input. So it's like telling you where it ends up actually telling you, the pipper shows you where you're aiming, and then you actually have a little trail of simulated dots, a little circles of where the bullets actually landed. So you get instant, in the old days, you think these World War II guys, it's always, you think back to the Greatest Generation, like, how these guys do it? How they do it, They had nothing. And these guys are shooting each other up in, air-to-air combat over the Pacific Ocean. And like, they didn't have any like instant feedback, but like, now you can actually see where your bullet is landing, your simulated bullet is landing on the target, where it is. So
the Hornet has a Gatling gun, like a 20.
It's got a 20 millimeter cannon. Yeah,
wow.
Vulcan. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Vulcan, right?
Yeah, Vulcan.
Yeah, that's a scary animal, right?
It's a great piece of gear. It's what 600. Was it 2,000 rounds?
2,000 rounds.
Yeah. It's definitely a good piece of gear. It's
puts lead down range.
It really does. Yeah. Depleted uranium. Yeah, it's good stuff.
All right. Well, we're gonna shoot the pipper. We're gonna shoot some pipper here. We're gonna shoot some steel. Best investment you ever made?
I want to say, this might be wrong, but I want to say my wife is the best investment I ever made. She's, we have 6 kids. She's a superstar on Dateline, does it all. She writes movies for Hallmark. She's going to write a book on, does all this murder mystery stuff. And she's just awesome. And she just takes it all in stride and is just the best wife of all time, and has allowed me to do what I'm doing now. And she took a chance on me. Some guy like, I'm going to get out of the Marine Corps right in the middle of the financial crisis. And then,
where was your first date?
Our first date I was actually down visiting my brother, who was in Quantico at the time, for Thanksgiving, and we actually met in Annapolis. We're in Annapolis.
Oh my God! What did you take her, like O'Brien's or something?
Yeah. You know what? I think I did. I think
you did.
I think I took her to O'Brien's.
Oh my God!
Yes. I know, it's completely absurd.
So the best investment you ever made was a really bad burger. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess in theory that's what it is. So, maybe some crab dip, and that's maybe. So that is I feel is my best decision. But best investment, at least of what I do now, was actually GE. GE with when they did the spinoff, they split the engine business, which is the crown jewel of aerospace and defense. But they also spun off this GE Vernova, which is industrial gas turbines, these big gas turbines for power generation for AI, and that's up like 500%. I had a 500% return on that one, which was just I'm so lucky I just hung on to it, because I was focused on the aerospace side. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna just keep on this power stuff, but that's the best one.
All right. On the flip side, worst financial mistake you ever made?
And on the same thing, investing in things that I don't know about. So I bought a small bioscience company, and it looked very interesting. Had sort of these rare disease things that can do tests for rare diseases, and it looked very interesting. But it's not my space. I didn't know it, and definitely took my punches on that one.
Yeah. You got to take your lumps. Military habit you will never lose.
You know what? It's back to what we were talking about, like sort of attention to detail, checklists, small, every item, all linear data being inputted. I have to do everything linearly. I can't keep multiple books. I just can't do it. I got to think about it. You can do it very quickly, but it's got to be linear. So I like every time I look at a stock, I have my little checklist, things I look for. And I iterate pretty quickly. My OODA loop is quick, but I still go through it. And the military, that burns that into your head day one until your last day, I think. So I'll never give that one up.
Yeah. And a book that shaped your mindset?
You know what? Another one, it's all online, is this book called Atomic Habits. You probably know. Yeah. And it's just so logical. Like, it's something that I guess we know from our past life, but I'm not a very good person formalizing ideas. And then you read it and you're like, that makes so much sense. It's exactly how I want to live my life. And it works. It's like, if you do little things every day, it works. It builds up and it makes big changes. So I love that book. It's a good one.
Couldn't agree more. Well, Tony, how can people follow you, connect with you, invest in the ETF? I mean, retail investors can invest.
Yeah, everyone. Yeah, I mean, it's a institutional down to retail product. You can go and buy it. It's called the ticker's is GCAD, Gabelli Commercial Aerospace and Defense, and it's good. We've had a really good run. We're up 15% this year. Over 1 year, we're over 50%, and on a 3-year CAGR, we're at about 30+%. We're the number one non-leveraged aerospace and defense ETF right now this year. So we're beating out our competition of about 10 or so aerospace and defense active ETFs. GCAD.
Tony, awesome to have you. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. It's been really extraordinary to watch your path from being tip of the spear in the air to tip of the spear in the financial services business. I wish you well in your endeavors, and thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, really great.
Pleasure.
That was awesome.
Pleasure. And for you, the audience, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week with another episode of Tactical Wealth. And I hope that you're taking notes. More importantly, I hope that you're taking action. And until then, it's a reminder, stay tactical, stay driven. All right, thanks for locking in with us today. Shout out to Siebert.Bauer and Siebert Financial for supporting our journey. We'll be back next week with another powerhouse conversation. More founders, more builders, and leaders who are playing offense in life and in business. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel for exclusive content and extended cuts of your favorite episodes. Until next week, stay tactical, stay driven.